Hey, how you guys doing? Hope you guys can hear me real good. Okay, so this is just me, guys. So you guys are early. So if you want to, if you want to speak early, yeah, this is a good time to request. But I just thought we should have like very relaxed conversation about Nigeria, the elections, what's coming up on Saturday, how it all ties back into the economy, and why it all matters, right? I normally do my spaces on Saturday, but I think I'm in transit and it's quiet here, so we might as well talk. So, we've seen the presidential elections, right? We've seen what happened. I don't think we covered ourselves in glory in terms of the process of that election. I don't think we did. And so, what has happened is that you've seen how the international press has reported on the elections and the effect it has had in Nigeria in terms of the bond yields, in terms of the stock market. Everything is flat. I've never seen the bond yields just be 0% and just be flat that way. No one is trading. Everybody is waiting to see what's going to happen, especially maybe till Saturday, just to see what's going to happen. So that's the consequence of not having a credible transition of power. Right? Even if you win, we all suffer because we're going to pay more in terms of interest rates, and we don't give the new person, the new president, a mandate, to do what is expected for him to do. That's the problem. So Obama said it's not just the elections per se, but what happens in between the elections. So Saturday was, I mean, to call it a disgrace, disaster would be nice. There were many good things that happened on Saturday. There was a lot of new first time voters that went out and voted, and that was very very good for the system. There was also the Beavers. I think the Beavers side worked because we didn't see a lot of people coming to vote or the fake registrations coming to the system. That also worked. I think the place we all saw the where we all saw it fail was in the transmission of results from the polling centers all the way to INEC. We might debate why. It looks like there was a bit of sabotage or some infrastructure, but in essence, that part failed, and we also saw that there was still violence. And I would have expected, let me use the better word, if I saw violence in places outside, say, Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, I would have said, okay, this is violence outside where the government has got a lot of power. But we are seeing violence in cosmopolitan Lagos and cosmopolitan Rivers. We are seeing violence there. So it just shows you that no matter how, largest economy and really developed, we're still really, really this backwater democracy, right? That we just can't hold an election without tribal or without violence showing its face in Nigeria. And all this is going to show up, guys, in the bond yields. I'm talking about the economic side of it. All this news you are reading about is going to show up when Nigeria goes to the market to borrow money. We're going to pay much, much more to borrow money. I just put up a chart, I think it was before yesterday, where I compared the Nigerian bond yields to, say, India. India's yields are from 6% to 7%. That's from 1 month to all the way to 10 years. 6%, 7%, no spread. Very, very tight. So when you see that sort of yield that is tight, it shows that the economy really, there's money available and it's available and it's available at a cheaper price. In Nigeria, yields are going all the way from, say, 8% to about 15% for over that 30-year period. So we are paying more to borrow and to develop the country. So all of us are paying that. The government does not pay. You pay. When the government borrows money, you pay back via your taxes. And that's where we're going to see it. And my own fear is that whoever becomes the president, we have a president-elect, if he's then sworn in, because of the chains that are on him now because of the electoral process, we see lots of guys. Chatham House has come out to say the elections was not conducted well. Financial Times translation was not conducted well, it's going to put pressure on him to do quote unquote to appease people. And Nigeria, the next 4 years, does not need economic appeasement. The economy is so bad that whoever is president has to really come into the country and take a lot of very, very hard, harsh decisions. Fuel subsidy has to go, that has to go. So your costs are going to go up, but it's good. It goes now, so we have a better 2, 3, 4 years down the line. Inflation is going to go up, then it's going to fall. The naira has got to fall so that it can rise. So these things have got to happen. If it doesn't happen in early, then it's going to be a problem down the line. And my take is that the elections has, right, instead of giving a mandate to a new guy, has actually put him in handcuffs, because he might be governor over a nation where whatever he does is going to be scrutinized and debated, even if it's a good policy. Even if it's a good policy. Remember, anyone that wins this election, right, is far better than what we've had for 8 years. So anyone that wins is far better than 8 years. But I just feel that this was unnecessary. The issues we saw in elections were unnecessary, and we're going to pay for it. That's my take, guys. So yeah, I can go on, but if you guys have a follow up or you have a counter review, I would love to hear it, man. What you guys think, and what if you guys are going to vote on Saturday? The Saturday elections are, in my view, also more important than even the presidential. Because whilst the president has a lot of powers in Nigeria, the states are the executive governors, which means they implement whatever policy or plan that the president is going to say. So if you live in any part of Nigeria, the road in front of your house is most likely a state road. The hospital you might go to is most likely either a private hospital or a state hospital. Even though you have a teaching hospital, it's most likely you're going to a private one or you go to a state one. Same thing with the school. The schooling that your kids would go to is most likely a private school or a state school. Yeah, that's primary and secondary. So you can see that where you live, where your kids go to school, even the security of your own life and property is really a state issue. So if you elect very, very good state governors, you are accelerating the process for your own development, right? The government in Abuja can only talk and share money, but your own state governor is going to be the guy to execute the money. And I give you a clear example. We have something called the Universal Basic Education. It's called the fund in Nigeria. And that UBE funds primary schools across Nigeria. So the way it works is that UBE says if you spend 1 naira, we will spend 1 naira. Just an example, right? So if a state governor spends his money to build schools, UBE will come in and support that state governor, right? And give that state governor more money to build schools. Do you know that there are many states in Nigeria that do not access the UBE because their state governors do not spend money on education? In quote, they don't spend enough. So they have counterpart funds in UBE just lying there that they could simply access if they spent money on education. So why are they not spending money on education? Well, because they're spending money on something else like an airport or whatever, right? So if you don't elect very, very good guys on Saturday to execute the plan of whoever is in Abuja or the plan of the people, then nothing's going to happen. So whatever, if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're disappointed, make sure you go out and elect people that you think will do a good job for you. That's just my take. And we'll go on and on about this. Daniela, what's happening? Daniela, Steve, how you doing, ma'am? What's on your mind? Daniela, do you want to speak or should I go ahead? Okay. So the states in Nigeria, right, and the electoral process, if you look at even the way incomes are distributed in Nigeria, right, how incomes are distributed in Nigeria, for every 100 naira Nigeria gets, the federal government keeps 48, but it's about 52 if you add up all the other things that they keep. So they keep 52%. Then the state and local governments get the rest of it. All that money, there's no state in Nigeria that gets less than 4 billion a month. no state in Nigeria. This is minus IGR. This is just FARC and VAT. Less than 4 billion, no state in the country. So if you add the IGR, states do get some money. And you want to ask yourself, do you see 4 billion monthly coming to your state? It comes, but if the governor is spending it all on building an airport or traveling abroad to look for foreign investors, in quotes, then your state isn't going to get developed. So it's very important that you hold your state governors to task. And the first part is to elect them. Elect good people, not backed by godfathers, good people that you can go back to and say, what have you done? Dr. Abdul Karim Osman, what's happening, sir? Go ahead.
Good morning, Carlo, and everyone on the call. I hope you're all doing great. Very important space. I just want to agree with you on your points that you've made, especially the importance of the upcoming governorship election. And a lot
Yeah.
of Nigerians tend to underestimate the importance of these subnational elections. And the reason is very simple. Um, the reason why I think we need to place more importance on this is very simple is because we are as strong as our weakest link. And
Mm,
oftentimes the weakest link is at the subnational, and by that I mean the states and the local government. So
that's true.
that's why I want to echo on your advice for Nigerians to really come out and vote. And if we look at this administration, for instance, people think that it's not working, but you can count a few states that would not really agree with you. And the reason is simple. They have a government, a state government that has actually been working for them. And so even though APC wave has been, you know, sweeping across the states, there are opposition parties
Mm,
that actually held their own and believed in their state government and were not really impacted by the whole APC wave because they have a system that is working. There's no need for change. So I really want to encourage Nigerians to really see the importance of these subnational elections and see how they can make their voices heard. Violence is not the way. Vote is the way we can achieve these things we're looking for. Having said that, I just want to seek your thoughts on, the recent statements by President-elect, where he was talking about plans to remove fuel subsidies and use the recovered funds for public transport subsidies. So, just to kind of hear from your own perspective, what do you think about using these subsidies uh, to be replaced by public transport subsidies? And if you don't
mm,
think this is the best use case for these subsidies, what then would you recommend? Because one of the biggest trap that we have for removal of subsidy is okay, now you've removed subsidy, but then again, the money you're using for does not really translate to overall improvement in the economy. So it's like going from fry pan to fire or from a bad case to another bad case. So just kind of clarify and share your thoughts on that. Thank you so much.
yeah. So fuel subsidy. Let's just break it down. Fuel subsidy has to go, right? We all know it has to go. Why does it have to go? Look at it this way. Nigeria has crude oil. So we export our crude oil and we get dollars, US dollars. Then we turn around and we use those US dollars to import PMS. So it's in and it's out. So the wealth does not stay in Nigeria. We're basically exporting jobs and we're exporting our wealth out of the country. So that's what fuel subsidy is. And who is paying the fuel subsidy? Let me also explain fuel subsidy to you. The poorer states, the Yobe, the Ebonyi, the Kogi, the Ekiti, the poorer states in Nigeria are the ones that are paying the subsidy for the richer states in Nigeria, like Lagos, Rivers, and Kano. Because fuel subsidy is a deduction at FARC. So the way they pay subsidy is that before they share the money to the tiers of government, they will deduct the fuel subsidy money because NNPC will say, I'm supposed to pay you 100 naira, but I'm not going to pay you 100 naira because I've taken that money to import PMS. And that FARC money is going to all the states. But all the states don't have the same number of cars. So you see that Yobe is paying for fuel subsidy, but it doesn't have the same number of cars that Lagos or Rivers has. So the poorer states are subsidizing the consumption of fuel for the richer states. So that's why it has to go, because it's not equitable and it's a waste of money. So now, how should it go? This is your question now. Every president has said we are going to take the fuel subsidy money and do local transportation. We've been doing and saying that for 20 years. There was all those buses you see, Shaw P buses, all those coastal buses, it's all fuel subsidy, quote unquote, safety net, where you take the money from this and you buy a bus and you invest. We've done that, and I don't think that's going to be sufficient. Because when you take away subsidy, it affects everybody instantly. But not everyone's going to ride a bus. Not everyone rides a bus. So, yes, go ahead and do the bus thing. But we should be a bit more intelligent and be a bit more, should we say, innovative in how we want to apply the subsidy savings, right? A typical Nigerian family, if they have 100 naira, what do they spend it on? According to the statistics by Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, 67% of that budget goes to food. Only about less than 7% goes to fuel. Less than 7%. Which means the typical Nigerian family is spending more on food than fuel. So if you want to subsidize anything in Nigeria, you want to subsidize food. So if fuel was 500 naira a liter, and a bag of rice was 2,000 naira a bag, I don't think Nigerians would mind, if you get the where I'm going to. So you need to be very direct to say, what are you going to subsidize with the savings you are making from PMS? You should, of course, go ahead and develop the infrastructure, but we should also subsidize what goes to all Nigerians, not just the Nigerians that live in Lagos, Rivers, and Abuja that have cars. So I want to see a bit more innovation in how the fuel subsidy is removed and dispersed. Food has got to be subsidized. I also don't think that Nigerians should pay the full price for crude oil. Like it or not, Nigeria has crude oil, and Nigerians should benefit from that crude oil. So what I would like to see is to say, reform and remove this corruption from subsidy of petroleum, and then pay the subsidy of petroleum to a certain income level in Nigeria. So we can say if you earn below 100,000, or you drive a car below this limit, or you have a bus, then you should enjoy fuel subsidy. There is no reason why we should pay the same price for crude oil as the guys in, say, Niger, in maybe Congo, that do not have oil. We have oil, and we are lucky to have the oil. So we should use the oil as an advantage to attract investments and to make the standard of living cheaper for Nigeria. So to your point exactly, we are always going to do, let's remove subsidy and buy buses, but we should be a bit more innovative and make this savings go wider. That paying poor people that Buhari was doing is a good policy, but it's poorly implemented. I think we should do it better and take some of the subsidy and have a payment to the very, very poor in Nigeria. We should also subsidize food in Nigeria. Then we should also invest a lot in infrastructure. That, I think we should do it. And one way to do it is to pay the subsidy at the Nigerian pumps and not at the ports. If you simply do BVN and NIN and say you are going to use e-Naira to pay people 5,000 naira a month, not cash, but e-Naira to your NIN-enabled phone, and you use that e-Naira to buy fuel if you're a bus driver, then you can allow the bus drivers buy fuel at even 50 naira a liter, because it's a subsidy directly to them, but everybody else buys at whatever price. So buses are free and cheap, or cheaper than personal cars. That's so it's a bit more of the innovation on how we do it, not what we are going to do. I mean, 20 years ago, I know a friend that got a bus because we removed subsidy and we bought a bus, and we're back here again. So innovation, a bit more wider net, and a smarter decisions. That's my take, Doctor. I don't know if you ever come back to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and there's really no hard and fast answer to that. I think ultimately implementation is key. As we can see over the years, we've not really have had problems with coming up with good policies, but the problem is implementation. And case in hand is the recent cash swap policy. But the thoughts going on in my head right now is number one, you made mention of okay, since Nigeria is have the resources for crude oil and stuff, it's only fair that we enjoy the benefit. But the unintended consequences now is you are aware of the arbitrage trading where some marketers prefer to sell to neighboring countries where they're most likely going to make more money than Nigeria, which is one of the reasons for the scarcity. So
Yeah,
that's one. What are your thoughts around that? And secondly, what do you think would be the role of the Dangote refinery in terms of addressing this for subsidy removal? Thanks.
yeah, good question. So someone also asked me that question also on the DM. He says, what will Dangote refinery do to fuel prices? Okay, guys, think about it now. Dangote refinery is refining crude oil. Crude oil is priced in dollars. So Dangote is going to take the same crude oil and refine. So you can't, there's no free lunch. If you give him the crude oil free of charge, that means you lose the revenue that you would have gotten if you sold that crude oil to, say, China. So you still lose money there. It's still a subsidy. If you make him pay full price, you get the income, but of course, you then have to subsidize it back to Nigerians. So there is no, if Dangote refinery is working today 100%, what we're going to save money on is the cost of importing the demurrage, the ships, the insurance on the ships. That's what we're going to eliminate. We still have the cost of crude oil. Crude oil is in Nigeria, but it's not free. So someone has to pay for it. So Dangote is still going to either pay for it in naira or dollars. And whichever way you choose, if you say pay for it in naira, you lose the dollar revenue. So it's a subsidy. If you say pay for it in dollars, then you have to get dollars from Nigeria to pay for it as well. Same thing. So there is not going to be a huge savings simply because you have a Dangote refinery. You would eliminate the cost of the imports of fuel of PMS, because now it's going to be crude oil from Nigeria to Dangote refinery in a free trade zone. Then Dangote would export the PMS to Nigeria in naira or dollars. It doesn't even matter. So someone still has to pay for the crude oil. So the Dangote refinery will not eliminate all the costs. It would eliminate the cost to do with imports of PMS from Netherlands to Nigeria. So that's going to, it will help, but it won't crash the price. There has to be a subsidy. As long as you price the crude oil in dollars, there has to be a subsidy. The question is, who gets the subsidy? Right now in Nigeria, we have the Petroleum Equalization Fund that says that the person buying fuel in Sokoto would pay the same cost for PMS as the person buying fuel in Delta State. Doesn't make any sense because maize, rubber, cocoa in Oyo it's not sort of the same price as, say, Sokoto, right? So you have to go with income band and say there will be a subsidy, but only for this sort of people. That means if you pay your taxes and you declare, say, less than, for instance, 80,000, then you can qualify for a subsidy. How would you get that subsidy? I've laid it out before. You have a phone. Your phone is NIN. You have e-Naira, right? You have BVN. This means that only Nigerians can get the subsidy because your NIN phone won't work in Niger or Cameroon. It only works in Nigeria. So if you pay your taxes, the government gives you, you can apply for subsidy. It's voluntary. If you don't want the subsidy, you don't have to apply for it. But if you want a subsidy, you're a taxi driver, you go with your NIN phone, you pay your taxes, the government gives you the phone code. Every month, you get 5,000 naira, e-naira to your NIN enabled phone. You go to the police station, you pay for your fuel with the e-naira token. to the fuel guy through his POS. The POS guy gets his money instantly, i.e., the fuel station gets their cash instantly, which they can redeem back for cash through a bank or through a central bank. What you've done is that you've eliminated the export of subsidized PMS in Nigeria. Because if I'm in Togo, I can't use my NIN phone in Togo. I can't get the e-Naira in Togo. So the fuel pumps are going to sell the fuel at the market price. But with my e-Naira, I'm paying the same market price, but I got it for free. That's how you get across that smuggling thing. You don't waste your time defending the borders. Let them export it, doesn't matter. But in Nigeria, if you have the NIN phone, the BVN, then you are going to pay for the expensive fuel with your phone. So that way you eliminate the need to police the borders and all that. And then you say, who gets a subsidy? If you earn less than 100,000, you get a subsidy. If you have a V6 car, why should you have a subsidy? You should pay because you have the money to pay for the fuel. Over time, the cost of PMS in Nigeria will fall, not go up, it will fall. Because if you have more refineries, then the technology comes in to refine, to extract more at a cheaper price. Over time, the price of the crude or of the petrol will fall. As the naira gets stronger, the price at the pumps will go down. It won't happen in a year or 2 years. This is a long-term thing. It will happen. So that's my take on what needs to happen on that, Doctor. All right, Doc, let me get Ayodele. Ayodele, thanks for holding on in here. Ayodele Daramola, what's up? What's in your mind?
Um, Good afternoon. If I for the people in Nigeria, are
Mm-hmm.
we? Good afternoon. And my own take is that if you want to, I'm not an economist, so I'm not really deep into economic matters. But I really think I can. Once I go outside, I can see one or two things that contribute to the mess we are in this country as we are right now. And then one I will start off with our leaders. I have never been impressed with them because there is no policy that they've ever implemented to the except if I may be right, I may be wrong, without how to make them win the next elections. Everything how we did make them win the next election. What are you bringing? What political base? How many votes will it translate to? That is number one, and that is the reason why almost all their policies will. We can say we are somewhat corrupt. Yes, I will agree, and I think that's one of the reasons. And number two, on transportation. Eh, I will take Lagos as a case study. I'm in Lagos, so I don't know about any other state. Yes, if we talk about origin, I'm from Ekiti, but I was born and brought up. There is no way by which we have cheap transportation in Lagos for as long as we still have these MC Oluomo parks and garage any RTW of a thing. A bus will pick up us at Kola. He will pay money in Kola. You get to Abule Egba, you will pay money in Abule Egba. You get to Yano Ilepo, you will pay. Get to Yano Paja, you will pay. All the way down to Oshodi, you will pay. That thing that you said, I really think it's possible if we really do deploy technology, but I think it's somewhat complex. And at the end of the day, you begin to have problems. I cannot use phone. You can use phone. I cannot use technology. You can use technology. And at the end of the day, almost everybody will turn to bus driver. I'm not saying it is not possible, but I think it's somewhat complicated. But rather, I just think if we begin to digitalize everything we do in this country with that name of a thing, if we decide not to bastardize it, I really think it will go a long way. But that you pay this and get name and this and I don't really think it will happen because we know our people. Then number three, um considering this, I also did do hear this topic about removing subsidy and use that money to see if June 1 I want, in fact, if it's possible today for Buhari to remove subsidy, let him remove subsidy. Then let us look at the budget of 2024. You will be ashamed that there's no such thing as saving subsidy to put into transportation, to put into this. Before you know it, also rock welfare. You will see the rate at which it will go up. National Assembly, you will see the rate at which it will go up. Education will not get more than 5 or 4%.
Ayo,
All this, yes.
Who can change it? Who can change it?
I really, in fact, I don't know how we can change this thing. I don't know how.
No, you can change it. Ayo, let's do a bit of politics. You live in Lagos,
okay,
right?
Absolutely, yes.
Have you noticed any difference in the governor of Lagos State's approach, speeches, manner, access? Have you seen any difference in the last 1 week? The governor of Lagos. Have you noticed anything different about his?
I can't hear you. Hello.
Have you seen anything different in the governor of Lagos? His approach, his access, where he's communicating. Have you seen any difference in the governor of Lagos State?
The little encountered my let me say the present governor of Lagos State now, Jide Sanwo-Olu. I have not seen anything different from Sanwo-Olu that is not in Fashola and the others, because it is the same arrogance that every one of them have. No other thing that this guy came to our street here to commission a road. Okay, the road in front of my house there, the road was contracted out by Ambode to one company. Yes.
Hold on. What I'm trying to say is this, right? I have noticed that the gentleman has been in TV stations. He's been out on the streets. They've paid pensioners ₦1 billion this week. They've released cars that were seized.
Okay.
Some cars have been released. And all this is because there's an election coming up. And they are doing this because they understand now that there's been a sort of an awakening of the youth vote. And that if you don't do things well, you could get voted out. That it's possible to get voted out. They know that now. And that's one thing that's happening in Nigeria. Everyone knows now that it is possible through the polling booths for you to get voted out. That's how you change things.
And then, but the only thing that what I know is this.
Don't say but. It's happening. We've seen it happening. Okay, I am from the southeast, right? In Enugu, all the PDP guys lost the elections. All of them for the house, for the federal seats. All the PDP guys lost their seats. The same way you're talking about they're arrogant and the rest. That's what used to happen in Enugu, because they were PDP, and PDP has ruled, in quote, Enugu from 1999 to date. They take people for granted. And now they've all lost their seats. What has happened in Enugu now? I've seen all the people in Enugu are now all saying they're all supporting a certain party, and they're all going to churches. I saw the guy kneel down to beg. The point I'm making is this. You can change things. That's why we're having this space. You have the power to change it. We can complain all day long on this space, but in the end, your vote is now powerful. So if you don't like what you're seeing, go and change it on Saturday. That's what I'm trying to say on the space.
If you don't I understand, but the only, to be frank and to be sincere with you, the only thing that I think can make changes is if you have National Assembly, to have a better crop of leaders in the National Assembly. Because I remember the senator representing us here, Yayi Adiola. I went to his office, asked questions. They were just looking at you. They were just looking at me that, what is this guy doing? Who are you? What do you want? Don't worry, we will call you. Till date.
Yeah.
Till date. I would go to the office. What's going on? This and that, blah, blah, blah. You will never get any.
So the point is that we have to use the power of the vote. Use the power of the vote to vote people out. That's the way you want to do it. That's why I'm having the space. We're talking about the economy and elections and why it matters. You have to use the power. Teknon, what's happening? Obi Promise. Mr. Teknon, you've got the floor, sir. Teknon.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Hi everyone. So my name is Teknon, and I've been meaning to speak for a while now. So I'm a hardware design engineer out of the University of Nigeria, and so this is coming from a private sector driven mindset. In 2022, I interned at one of the labs in the school, and we had the opportunity to pitch at the finals. We got to the finals in CBN, that is a tertiary institutes entrepreneurship scheme in CBN. We were pitching for 200 million investment in the idea that we designed. And anyways, that's by the way. But the point is, yeah, so from a private sector driven um mindset, Carlo, is it not possible? Can we not say that there are enabling policies to drive this idea that you've just put out? I mean, we have e-naira, we have the NIN, and we have the BVN, which is also a KYC module. So we can just run certain back end programming, build out from that point, and then drive this from a private sector driven point of view rather than from a public sector driven point of view. Because I mean, the private sector, as we know it, is an enabler of commerce, an enabler of economies, and all of that. So the question really is very simple: how can we drive this idea from a private sector, or a commercial centric point of view? Say for instance, Carlo, you were given a grant of, I don't know, 100 million naira, and you were put to the test and say, you know what, drive this from a private sector driven point of view. What would you do? Thank you. I yield.
Yeah, I think the answer is really going to be that the public sector or the governance side sets the policies and the rules. Then they get out of the way and allow the private sector to go ahead and implement and to then grow productivity. That's how it's supposed to work. Look at what's happening with the Naira cashless policy and Naira design change. We have the government policy come out, the policy is good. But the implementation, because the private sector, the capacity in the, should we say, the infrastructure of the IT network has not, it's now been stress tested, it couldn't hold up. Because we haven't encouraged investment in that sector of late, right? Let me give you my own theory on that. MTN, Airtel, all those guys are the guys that are driving the infrastructure backbone in Nigeria. In the 8 years of the Buhari administration, what did we do to MTN? We fined them this major amount of money because they broke a law that on the SIM cards, right? We fined them an amount of money that they would not even have invested in the country. So if they were going to invest in the country, they did not, because they had to pay that fine to Nigeria. What we are seeing today with this breakdown of your transfer is not working, you can relate it back to the lack of investments in the big telcos in Nigeria. And we are paying the price. That government policy affects private actions. That's what's going on. No matter how good the private enterprise or the private people are, they need the policies of the government to work. You can't shut down the borders and expect SMEs to function. SMEs that get their inputs maybe from imports, right? And or maybe sell across the border. So policy must drive profits. Both must work hand in hand. The government should not be in the business sector, but the business sector should not also try to govern. Both of them have got to have a symbiotic relationship. In Nigeria, it's almost like, and I made this tweet earlier, if you take away the government of Nigeria, the private sector will double in GDP. And that's a development irony in Nigeria, that the government is actually the one pulling back the private sector, reducing its efficiency. Go to any city in Lagos or any city in Nigeria, put up a business, you get taxed before you start. You put up a billboard, you are taxed, you build business premises. The business exists to tax you. So the government exists to tax you, but not to grow you. And that's where we have this, that's where we're getting it wrong in Nigeria Tecton. We've
Yeah,
got to have a government that looks at a business and says, I want to grow this guy so that in 4 years I can tax him more. Not I want to tax him
absolutely.
right now. That's where we're getting it wrong.
Absolutely. I totally agree. However, we know for certain that I mean the government hasn't necessarily woken up. I mean, Florida Wave didn't necessarily wait for the government. Paystack didn't wait for the government. Move didn't wait for the government. They're partnering with is it Hyundai, and a lot of other guys are just doing very immense stuff to just really pull their weight. I mean, what we're doing right now is irrespective of the current situations in the country, right? So I totally joined in. I totally agree with you, but I joined in late, and would just like for you in just 1 minute to sort of like
Yeah,
recapitulate on what you just said, about the about how this is to work. That is what you just talked about in terms of buying fuel with your e-naira, having to register or do some kind of KYC with your BVN and your NIN. Just in 1 minute, so you recapitulate. There might be someone out there who's listening, or who's trying to ID it on something of that sort. Yeah, I mean it's quite an
Yeah.
interesting
Actually,
subject matter. Yeah, thank you.
second, I've actually posted it. If you go online, Google my name, Nairametrics. It's called "Pay the Subsidy at the Pumps," not the port. I actually wrote it right there for anyone to run with it. Essentially, you have your phones are NIN enabled. You have e-Naira. You have BVN. So let's say the government takes away fuel subsidy today. So the price goes up to 500 naira a litre. But the government says we want to pay subsidy. So leave the price at 500 naira. And I tell Nigerians, if you pay your taxes or whatever you want to criteria you want to use, simply apply for subsidy. So you apply, you take your tax ID, you apply for subsidy, say 5,000 a month. The government will pay you e-Naira voucher through your NIN phone. That's it. You go to the filling station, you pay you buy your fuel, and you pay with the 5K or whatever the government wants to give you as a subsidy from your phone to the POS and the filling station. That's it. You don't have to do the price down. It's leave it at the $500, so nobody can smuggle it out of Nigeria because it's at the same price you have across the border. But the e-Naira is then going to be enhanced. You have other payment methods that you can use to pay, but the subsidy is paid electronically to your NIN phone. So if you want to get a subsidy, you pay taxes, you get a phone. That's it.
Yeah, and lastly, just before I yield, are there policies to, because I see that government has to really develop a policy around subsidy. I mean, what policies exist within this landscape?
I think the main policy of the government is to ensure the well-being of the citizens. That's number one policy of the government, right? That the government exists for the people. So if we have crude oil, then the government must ensure we use that crude oil to make Nigerians' lives better. Hence, we should not just remove the subsidy. We can't ask Nigerians to pay full price for the subsidy. If you are rich, pay full price. If you are not able to pay full price, the government must subsidize it for you. That's my take. That's the number one overriding policy. So make the what is called the term for market is to say you want to we've already done that now. We've devolved the powers, right? We've taken away NNPC to NNPC Limited. You should sell NNPC. The government should get out of NNPC, then tax NNPC. Give it all out to the private sector. Let them go and refine and drill and whatever. Whatever they make from there, tax them, right? That's the government's rule. Set policy, set guidelines, set law. That's what. Does that make sense, Teknon? All right, let's get Kaka.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Kaka, you've got the floor, sir. Go ahead. Ado, sir. Ado Mohammed, how are you doing? I think I know Ado. Ado, how are you doing, sir? Ado, you've got the floor going once. Ado got the floor going twice. So, guys, I just want to get back to the point of the space, right? You have an election coming up on Saturday. You're going to elect chief executives. I get it. The president is the number one chief executive, but the governors are going to be your main chief executives. Your governors handle health, they handle education, and for a large extent, they are responsible for your security in your state. If you have a lousy governor, you are not going to get wealthy. Your business will not grow because the government policies can kill your business. Look at Lagos State. I'm going to use an example. Look at Lagos and the Gokada incident. Those guys were foreign investors. They came to Nigeria. They brought in FDI. They recruited a lot of Nigerians, created jobs. What happened to them? One government policy, they are out of business. So you want to elect business-friendly governors, folks that understand policy, that understand how the government and the private sector can work together to achieve an objective. And the objective is you. Stop complaining. You have now shown that you've got the power. There is now a reawakening in Nigeria. The politicians now understand that the youth now get it, that they can vote them out. So use that power. This is why democracy is good, because you have the power to change out your bosses if you don't like your bosses. So enough of the complaining and more of the voting. That's what I want to see on Saturday. So whatever, if you're angry about the presidential, leave that aside for now. Go out, elect your state guys for the houses of Congress, elect your state governors as the chief executive officers. Get them to work. Get them to work for you. There's a movement now. You have the power now. You must use it. Very, very important. Otherwise, it's going to go back to how it used to be in the past. Now you can vote people out. Take advantage of it. Get in people that would work for you. All these folks talking about tribe and religion, that is so 12th century, right? You don't need that in your life, right? You want to vote in quality CEOs, irrespective of their tribe, irrespective of their religion. If they are good, please vote them into power, right? All right, guys, we've got about, say, 9 minutes to go. We've done about an hour, and you guys have been just wonderful hanging out with me. This is an unplanned space, so I do appreciate you guys. So does anyone have any comments on all of we can end this guy? Saturday, we might do something again just to see how it goes. Spaces for elections on Saturday and see how it goes. But please, 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 guys, I'm just doing this around the mill 1 hour with you guys. Make sure you go out and vote. Make sure you go out and vote. Don't let anyone stop you. The more you vote, the more you send a message that your vote has got a power, and the more you can help to elect your board of directors. That's really what it is. The country is a company, and you can elect your board of directors by voting. If you don't vote, guys, you have already voted. If you don't vote, you've already voted. You voted for the incumbent. So either you go out and vote to defend your vote, or you go out to vote to change the incumbent. But do something, right? Stop complaining. Go out and do something. That's the take, right? All right, folks. I think we're going to end it now. Technon, thank you so much. Ayodele, thank you so much for your questions. Also, Doctor, thanks so much for your questions. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys maybe on Saturday. We can talk again. But you guys do have a lovely rest of your day. Have a good one, and bye.